Hello, welcome back to the Lux Bride podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the layout of a ceremony.
And these are the very basics that we're talking about, and then we'll talk about other things that you can include. But the first thing that you do, which people might think is kind of silly, there's the processional. The processional is also where you walk in. And so you're talking about the order in which you're walking in, who's going where. Ideally, you're probably last, the big thing, right? So that's the processional part. The next part is any opening remarks. This is usually if you're having like an unplugged ceremony, this is a perfect time to announce that. Or if you're having like a parent walk you down the aisle and they are, who presents this person to be married to their partner, that's usually the opening remark. So those are the first two things that are included in this ceremony.
The next thing that's going to happen is an exchange of vows, and you can either choose to write your vows or to just repeat after your officiant, pastor, minister. So that's going to be the third action that's going to happen. And then your ring exchanged. That kind of happens in tandem with vows. It just depends on how you organize it. You could be reading your vows as you put the ring on, or you read a vow, you put the ring on, your partner reads their vow and puts your ring on. And that's the next part of the ceremony.
And again, remember, these are the very basics of what's included in like any ceremony. Because the next part after that, you're going to think, wow, that was the quickest ceremony ever. Some of them are genuinely about 10 minutes long. Elisa can contest to this.
Yeah.
Whereas some of them, we've got a lot more involved. But the next thing that would happen is the announcement of your marriage. So, you are now a couple. And then after that is the all-important kiss. Mm-hmm. And just speaking from a photographer, I'm going to input something here real quick. Can you please hold that kiss for like 3 seconds so we can get a nice photo of you? I know it feels weird, but hold that kiss for like just a couple of seconds for us.
I like that.
I had to add that in.
Hold that just a few seconds longer to get all the pictures out of that moment of sealing the deal with a kiss.
Exactly.
And then the final things that are going to happen in the wedding day is closing remarks. So this is a great time if you want to let people know, to head over if there's a cocktail hour that's all on the same property to head there next, or if you want to announce for immediate family members to stay by for pictures. Those are all really important things to announce at that point. Obviously, it's going to wait until after the couple that just got married is out and already has walked down the aisle. The bridal party is probably walking down the aisle or almost done, and then that's when you give your closing remarks. So there definitely is a proper time and a place for giving that. And that's a great time. Just any information that's kind of just to fill in the gap between ceremony and cocktail hour or those pictures is when you need to say that. Because grandma might not know that you want her to stay by for pictures. So you need to say immediate family members to please stay present for follow. And then the very last part is going to be the recessional. That's when everybody is walking out. I guess I kind of already said that, but it kind of depends on how you want to do that. If you want to have that closing remark first after the couple is kissed and as they're walking, just kind of timing that out with your pastor, minister, officiant to let you know what they feel most comfortable with. But the recessional is the entire couple walking out, and then after that, the bridal party walking out. And that is the formality of that. So that's like the basics for a ceremony, but Stephanie's going to talk about more.
Well, isn't it crazy though? Like when you look at just like the basics of a ceremony, you're like, there's like nothing to that, but there's a lot within there. Yeah,
it's pretty simple, but there's a lot within there, and there's a lot that you can do to add or enhance your ceremony. And we're going to kind of talk about some of these extra additional things as well.
Yeah, so a lot of things that we tend to see are things like a unity ceremony. Sometimes that's with a candle. That's typically like, I've seen that in the church quite a bit, because outside the candle kind of doesn't stay lit like you want it to. But I've seen it happen outside as well if it's possible. Or things like a sand ceremony, or other things like that. That's something else that you can add in if that's something you really want. And then any type of readings and or speakers can happen. So if you are having a religious ceremony, you need a reader. Somebody else can be involved in that. That's usually somebody that's very special to you, which I absolutely love, because then there's like, oh, my brother spoke at my wedding. I love hearing that. Or if you're having somebody else do some type of speech or musical musical integration. I don't know how to word that. Somebody's doing music.
That's correct. Musical integration. Sometimes it's a song.
Yeah.
If somebody's a very talented musician or singer, sometimes it's a song. Sometimes that song happens during the unity ceremony. It really depends on like what you want for yourself, right? This is a time to think about like the moment. This is one of the most important moments. So it's really important to take that time to put into it, to think like, what do you want out of this moment? To add on to what Stephanie was sharing about reading, I've used, even if it's not religious, some people have like a really special poem or something that's really important to them that they want spoken and said during the ceremony. And again, it's kind of nice to be able to do that. If there's any type of lull or moment in between, some people will do it before the exchanging of vows. After the announcement's been made, it gets put there. Sometimes it gets put like right before you may kiss the bride or groom, like it really depends on how it seems to flow naturally and what you want for your wedding day. Sorry, I felt like I had to jump in more in that.
No, I think that's great, because I think like those are added things too. Like even as I'm talking, sometimes, we forget everything we've seen.
Absolutely. And then there's also other traditional elements. So I know I personally have had a lot of mixed element weddings where you're bringing together different family traditions, Irish, Scottish, I've had Hindu, I have had Israeli, I've had Lebanese, different things that are really important to your culture to modernize it. And I've had couples like mash like more of an American style with a more cultural diverse style. Maybe it's tying of the hands. Maybe it's going to be lifting you up in chairs like afterwards. I've had it happen at a few weddings. Maybe it's a ceremonial coconut, or maybe it's a fire or smudging. There's a lot of different things that you can incorporate. Depends on what you really want, again, out of it. So I think it's nice to talk about it and to see like what do you want to honor in your culture and what do you want to bring to that for the ceremony.
Yeah, like I had a Philippine wedding where they integrated some elements of that. So there was the rope that they put over the two of them, the veil that they put over the two of them, and then someone handed them coins. And all of those are very symbolic of different things as far as luck, love, fertility, like all that kind of stuff. But they had very specific people doing those things too. So, and just like as a side note, his dad, like they are not Filipino in any way, but he was like, okay, how do I hand the coins? Like, so it's best. And I was like, okay, we're going to hand it a little bit like Vera Wang. So that way I can see your face and the coins. And he went, okay, I got it. I'm sorry, that's such a cute moment.
No, I like that. That is really cute. I think it's also a way to make your ceremony a little bit more memorable too, to be honest. Not that saying some sweet sentiments aren't really impactful, but I think that this is a way for you to own your ceremony, to make it your own and have ownership over it by putting in these personalized touches and culture aspects into it. I've even had one couple like do an outfit change. So it was like Hindu in the beginning, and then she changed real quickly and it came out in like more of like that white American ball gown. So like that was kind of interesting to have as well, to have 2-in-1 in a ceremony is a really unique thing to do. So don't be afraid to do something a little abnormal. I do think it's important to think about timing when you're doing this. When you do more religious ceremonies, like a traditional Catholic ceremony could be 2 hours if you did 2.5 if you did traditional. If you did the shortened version, it's an hour, and that's still a decent amount of time for a ceremony. Most are 30 minutes, surprisingly, in that aspect, including walking in and out and everything that's being spoken. It's usually pretty simple, but these are also things to take in context, because eventually your guests are going to get a little rowdy. They're going to start to get impatient. You're going to start losing their focus and their attention.
Right.
So, yeah.
And one of the last elements I really want to talk about, because both Elise and I have had interesting perspectives of this, is a receiving line. A receiving line is typically where like the couple comes down, you've just gotten married, the wedding party joins you, maybe parents, not always, and maybe grandparents, but that's less so, I've noticed. And then you literally receive the guests as they come down. So they're released, they come say hello to you down the line. Now, the receiving line, I will say it can be beautiful. However, you cannot just put this in and just think, oh, well, we can just add in a receiving line. It'll take 10 minutes. It never takes 10 minutes.
It takes 30 minutes.
It takes 30 minutes because
At
least, yes. People want to go down the line. They need to say hello, then they get to talking, then they hold up the line, and then you can't say no to, Aunt Janet, who's just saying hello to everyone and she's chatty. So a receiving line is something you have to decide that you want well before the rehearsal, because it's inevitable that at the rehearsal you get asked, and then because I would say it's a more traditional element. So your older generations, like your parents or your grandparents might be like, well, are you doing a receiving line? Don't say yes if you have not said yes before. That's my overall. I know I can sound so mean with that.
No, it can change the timeline significantly, and then you're late the rest of the day and your food's a half hour behind and it's cold.
Yes.
In reality, that's what's going to happen. So you can't decide the day before and not tell anybody. You need to make that decision well before, like that month before your wedding. You need to decide, do you want to have a receiving line and you want to say hello to all of your guests? It's not very COVID friendly. So during COVID, a lot of people have just cut that out. But if you have family pictures afterwards, you're still going to have that time a little bit to talk with family. So you can remember that you're going to have these family pictures too, that you can say hello to grandma and aunts and stuff like that if they're in the family pictures. So be strategic with your time. Yeah.
And I will also say, for even if you are doing a receiving line, I also have the officiant, I've talked to the officiant about this and my couple with this specifically. They need to make an announcement that your family, whoever is going to be in those photos, needs to stay seated. Because if they start going throughout their receiving line, they are gone. And so now not only have you added more time with the receiving line, you've added more time trying to find Uncle Bob, who decided to go through the receiving line and has now gone, oh, well, I don't need to be in photos.
Yeah. Yep.
So if I'm trying to make sure as a photographer that you're getting all of your photos, I need you to help me out just a little bit.
Yeah, it's a huge time suck. So you really have to think of if you want it. There is a pro and con to it. The pro is that you get to say hello to everybody. And if you don't see them the rest of the night, that's fine. You said hello, you shook their hand or hugged them. So you got it done. So I think that's the most positive reasoning for having that. Yeah. So later you're not going to every single table during your reception. You're just going to enjoy yourself because that's what you should be doing. But it's a time suck. So some people, if you're in a church, it's conservatively going to take a decent amount of that time in your church. And I know some couples have a really tight time. You need to be out by 1 or 2 p.m. if it's an early ceremony, or if it's a 3 o'clock ceremony, you might need to be out by 4 or 4:30. That's not a lot of time. So if you're planning on ceremony, family pictures, and a receiving line, that's a lot. You're not going to have any time. You're going to be rushing and you might get behind. So that's why it's important to talk about the realistic part of it, of having that.
Yeah. And on top of that too, if you're adding in all of those elements and you have to be out of the church at a certain time or out of your ceremony at a certain time, and you haven't done a first look, we're now also running behind on wedding party photos and portraits of the two of you, which means that you're potentially getting less portraits, or we're really, really rushing. And that's not what I want for you on your wedding day. That's not what either of us want. So planning that beforehand allows us to input that time already. And so that way we all have a very clear idea about what's going to happen when and how much time we have. And you can be more relaxed knowing that you're getting not only all of your photos, but if you want the receiving line, you are able to do so.
Yep, absolutely. I think a little piece of wisdom, and it's not related to the ceremony-ish, is maybe make a little bit longer cocktail hour. So you're done taking pictures and then you get to go to the cocktail hour and actually enjoy it for a little bit and mingle with your guests, for 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour if you're lucky before the reception starts. Mm-hmm. And then you can go use the restroom and everything before you're doing, if you do a grand announcement into the tent or into your reception dining space. Mm-hmm. I think that could be really enjoyable for couples, because I know that they really push their time with photos as well. So if you made it longer, you'd have the time for the photos and you'd have that time for family and friends during the cocktail hour if you plan it strategically enough.
Yeah, and it's always really fun to send my couple over to a cocktail hour. I'm like, okay, well, we're done here now. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, what?
Now go get some drink.
Absolutely. Go get yourself a drink. Go start saying hi.
Yes. I think it's really nice when couples can enjoy their cocktail hour, because a lot of them make it for the guests and not themselves. But it's like, but you have hors d'oeuvres and you're probably hungry and there's beverages. So like, you should enjoy that too.
Yeah, you should definitely enjoy that too. Okay. But overall, that's what we had for basics of a ceremony. We do hope that helps somebody out, because we know that like when it comes to the basics of a ceremony, what in the world is even included in that? And I think, I mean, maybe you can attest to this a little bit too, Elisa. Sometimes couples forget or like put this part on the back burner.
100%.
Yeah. But it's also the whole reason for the day, right?
Yeah. Never underestimate having a plan for your ceremony.
Yes.
So many couples wing this part of it. Like they're like, oh, we typed up the service and that's it. They haven't put thought before and after, like what's happening.
Yeah.
They know like they have like the ceremony wording figured out. There's so much more to it than just like the ceremony wording itself, that all affect the day and can make it enjoyable or stressful, to be honest. So I think it's important to really take time to think about this. You're going to need to think about who's going to be walking out. Ask your parents or grandparents if they're going to be escorted. You know, is that the start of it? If you're going more of a church route, you know, does the minister or your pastor, does he walk out first and that starts it, you know? Because a lot of more religious churches, especially, I think it's more Catholic churches, they are the first to begin to walk out to begin the ceremony. Mm-hmm. And so like, these are all things that you really need to take in consideration. Sometimes it's a preference thing. Maybe family wants to be escorted as a person of importance. Maybe they just want to be sitting because they don't want to have the starlight on them. Mm-hmm. That's not what they're there for. So communication is important of expectations, and to have a plan for that, as well as talking to your bridal party, like, you know, who's going to be with whom as they walk down, and having that planned ahead of time. And that's why rehearsals are so important for ceremonies. A rehearsal is the way to get out all the kinks and see what works or doesn't work. Everybody can get the jitters out. It sounds silly, but for the processional and the recessional, it's important to let people know like how long you need to wait before the next person goes out, because you don't walk right behind each other. Maybe it's like somebody walks a halfway or a third of the way down the aisle and then the next group starts. So it's like these perfectly spaced out. It's like these are all orchestrated and they don't just come together out of sheer dumb luck. Like it comes together because it was practiced and communicated.
Such good points. I love it. All needed. Okay, so we're going to end there for today. But next week, we are talking all about sending out invitations, when to do so, how to do so, and it should be awfully fun. And I'm also sorry if you heard that beep. That was just my mister. So.
And we'll even share some links that might be helpful for stationery too. So look out for next week.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.